want to sleep.
You're tired, man. It's okay. Good night.
My baby.
At this time. I'm almost done.
Hello. Good evening.
Good evening.
I'm looking for her, madam. Could you please call her for me?
Please, may I know why?
Oh, no. Just tell me that she has a special visitor coming.
Okay, are you sure?
Yeah.
Okay.
No, don't worry about it. Thank you.
At this time, who's that?
Please, there's a big tall man at the door. He said he wants to see you.
See me for what at this time?
Please, I don't know.
I'm sure you changed his nappy.
Wednesday, 30th June 1982 started as a typical day in the lives of Ghanaians, but the course of events later on that day made it one of the darkest in Ghana's history. In the dead of the night, armed men led by Lance Corporal Amedeka abducted 3 High Court judges and a retired army officer. These were Justice Fred Pokusa Akodie, born August 26, 1927 in Koforidua, attended Adisadel College from 1943 to 1948, went to Forabe University in Sierra Leone in 1954, admitted to Middle Temple in 1960, and elevated to High Court Judge in 1971. He was married to Yvonne Sarkodie, with whom he had 5 children. Justice Kwadwo Ejay Ejapong, born at Oyoko in November 1926, went to Infantipim in 1942, had a bachelor's degree at the King's University in 1958, and called to Inner Temple in 1960. He was elevated to the position of High Court Judge in 1977. He was married to Comfort Ejapong and had 10 children. His last child was 3 months when he was abducted. Mrs. Cecilia Quarantine Ado, she was born May 24, 1956 at Asin in Suta, attended Holy Child School in Cape Coast, called to the English Bar in 1963, became District Magistrate in July 1966. She was appointed High Court Judge in 1975. She was married to Dr. Gustav Quarantine Ado, with whom she had 3 children. Major retired Sam Akwa was the Director of Personnel of the Ghana Industrial Holding Corporation, where Amatekwe worked. He had 5 children. Kwabene Ejapong was just 19 years when this happened. As a young boy, he was writing a letter in his father's living room when he heard knocks on the door. The visitors were looking for his father.
They came with a story that Auntie Sisi was not well. They had taken her to Ridge Hospital, and the husband was not around, so he wants to see my dad. So that was the story. And at first, I wanted to go out and find out, but he just said, "Okay, can you go up and get me my sandals, native sandals, the ones that we use for funerals?" I remember that. And at home, he normally wears a white shorts and a white singlet. So he was wearing white. And so we went up and brought the slippers to him. So he took it and then he went out to see them. I didn't follow them, so I don't know what happened. And I thought the situation was serious, so perhaps he had accompanied them to the Ridge Hospital or something like that. So we just left it there, and then I continued to write. And then after that, I went home. I went to my bedroom.
One judge after the other, they were picked up and whisked away to the Bundasi military range, where they were murdered in cold blood.
So we traced the long, tortuous journey for more than 2 hours from Ridge, where these judges were picked up, to Bundasi, and specifically to the shooting range here at Bundasi. This is where it is believed the 3 judges and the Army General were finally brought. Now, if you look at where I'm actually seeing now, the judges were lined up here and shot. We understand that they were killed instantly, then set on fire. The army officers and the perpetrators in this case left. These perpetrators left with the hope that the bodies could never be traced and they will never be found. Fortunately, heavens opened and it rained that night. The rains could not save the lives of these judges who had already been shot and killed, but at least it gave us our clearest trace or something left of the dead body for us to be able to bury.
Kwabena assumed that his father would return home after helping his friends out. So he slept that night only to wake up the next morning to the reality that his father might have stayed a bit too long with the visitors.
We were not to notice that he didn't come home. I just went and slept. So it was only in the morning that we had a loud knock on the door, and it was coming from our next door neighbors, and that happened to be Justice Pokusa Akode. So the wife came to come and inform my dad that last night the husband had been picked, and that she saw them. I think she argued a bit, but they were able to take the husband away. But apparently it was after that that they came to our house. We're not the next door neighbors. So I didn't even get it. I just rushed up to my father's bedroom to go and tell him what has happened. I got to the bedroom, he wasn't there. So I went to my mother's room. I said, "What is Daddy?" He should be asleep. So he's not there. I went downstairs and the food remained in the same way he left it. Not finished eating, nobody had touched it, so we were confused. Then I also ran out of the house and went to Justice Eduse's house, which is just across. The judges used to stay around the Ridge area. So it was when I got to Justice Eduse's house that he confirmed that this is what he called Justice Apalu, who was then the Chief Justice at the time. So it was then that we realized that there was something serious happening, and that some 3 judges had been picked the previous night.
Oh, okay.
This is in the morning. So that night I just went to bed, my mom went to bed, nobody knew that he didn't come back. My bedroom was downstairs, their bedrooms were upstairs. So we found out only the next morning, and then that was when we thought they were just missing, that they'd been abducted. So it was a very long 4 or so days between Thursday, Friday, Saturday till Sunday that there was an official announcement that this has happened.
Kwabena Japan tells this program he returned from the Accra Sports Stadium where he went to watch a football match to learn about the unfortunate happenings.
Despite the fact that our father was missing, that Sunday, as young as I was, I still managed to go to the stadium. You know, so I think that Sunday was Harzog and Hazakis. Yeah, if my memory serves me right. So I went to the stadium again. When I was getting into the house, then I saw quite a number of people around. Then they were beckoning me to hurry up and get into a car and let's all leave the house. I didn't understand what was going on. That was when I think information had started filtering through that 3 bodies had been found, 4 bodies had been found at the Bondase military range. You know, so that night I left home. I went to sleep with a friend in Jolu. Strangely, around 5 a.m., you know, BBC confirmed it. You know, I think his mother switched in on BBC and confirmed it. So that's where I got the full picture.
3rd of June, 1982.
Here is wife of the late Major Sam Akwa, Jemima Akwa's account of how her husband was abducted in their home.
That day was a Wednesday. My husband went to work.
7:45.
He came back 7:45 p.m.
Now Ben, no sir, Sister Emete, Nukunewu, in Sorokona Waba.
What's about it?
Sister Emete, Nukunewu, in Sorokona China Waba.
They said their sister Emete has lost the husband, so he was going to pay them a visit and come.
Now about 9:45.
He came back in 9:45 p.m.
Now Ben, I'm a catcher, the Uncle Kana Papone the Banshroom farmer.
I told my being an Abisha. I told my daughter to go and prepare the evening meals for the father. You should hate it. There and then I heard a knock on the door. I went to look. I saw somebody who was putting on a smoke. I questioned him. I told me, Mr. Ushia.
Oh,
my Lord, he said he met my husband in town and he said he should come home. I then questioned him as to how he could go back during the curfew hour.
No, sir, or the broadcast car.
He said he came with a broadcasting vehicle. I questioned him as to whether the broadcasting vehicles are not affected by the curfew.
No, so the paper said that on the
he said he was having a pass and he could go everywhere during that time. I went to the hall. I went and called my husband that he's being wanted by someone.
No, Ben, no, sir, Bamba camp.
When he came, he was told that he was dead at Burma camp.
The next morning, the charred remains were found at the Bundasi military range. It wasn't immediately clear why such a dastardly act was committed. Kwabena Japan reviews in hindsight what could be a hint that the military was unhappy with his father.
An uncle who was in the army, Bechi, he also died subsequently, who used, I quite remember, came to the house to caution my dad a bit that, you know, people were feeling a bit uneasy about the fact that he was reviewing some of the cases. And I quite remember Bechi would come home in his military uniform. He was a relative of ours, my father's, and but never in our wildest estimation did we think that this could happen, would happen. But of course, I mean, it was difficult for everybody in those days. After Dr. Liman took over from the AFRC.
I, Ila Liman, having been elected to the high office of President of Ghana.
Chief of Defense Staff at the time, Brigadier General Joseph Nunu Mensah, lends credence to Kwabena Japon's narrative. He explains the murdered judges and the retired officer were deemed enemies of the revolution.
Between 79, one people were put in prison, some were killed, and 82, 81, 82. Some of these people went to court, made appeal, and they were
Freed.
They were free.
Some were even asked to be paid reparations.
That's right. This angered, I'm not part of it, I wasn't part of it, but this angered those who came back. Some of them angered them. That's what they call them, enemies of the revolution.
Oh, okay.
I'm not justifying it. I'm not explaining to you why that term was used.
Oh, okay.
Because they thought they had dealt with the revolutionary justice.
They had
reversed the judgment.
Revolutionary justice.
Exactly.
Okay.
I'm not saying that I'm part of that belief, no. But that's what they understood it to be. What they call them enemies of the revolution.
Supposed to be 24 years of independence without the true economic power.
What the judges had in common was that they had adjudicated on some of the cases in which, during the period of the AFRC rule, certain persons had been sentenced to long terms of imprisonment and ordered their release. Mrs. Krantiado and Major Aqua also had this in common. Major Sam Aqua, as Director of Personnel, had signed the dismissal letters of workers of Gihok, where Joachim Amatekwe worked. The workers subsequently brought an action, which was dismissed by Mrs. Krantiado. The incident hit General Nunu Mensah hard, as Major Sam Aqua was his childhood friend.
That was the straw that broke my back. I said, no way would I belong to the government. In fact, much later, there were rumors as to who and who were involved. And when the rumors became, there was a little bit more light control on the rumors, it became like, I have a feeling who and who were involved. The CDS now, my ADC was saying, just next room, that's next house after this 1 year. He came in, said, what happened was, I actually went to Wonder Barracks to find out from President, then Chairman Rawlings, whether you heard the news. He said yes. But if you look at it, it was so upset. I think it was almost in tears. I've heard the news. And then I sent people, Air Force, to go looking for them. It was when I came back, then the current series of Betavitis came to tell me that some bodies had been found.
Okay.
At the Bumbundasi range. So the bodies of these people had been abducted.
Then leader of the Professional Leaders Association, lawyer Samu Kujeto, is one of those who maintain that the PNDC had sowed seeds of hatred against the judiciary, which fueled the action.
In fact, as soon as the thing happened, we issued a statement to the press attacking the PNDC and said that, look, when you came into office, you've been preaching hatred in the country. You were preaching workers against the so-called professionals, poor against rich, or so-called. This was part of it. And the judges were administering justice. But some of them were aggrieved individuals, like Amatekwe, the bigger perpetrator of the whole crime, that he was working at Gihok. And there was a strike, they were dismissed. These matters came before the courts. And the judges gave judgment. And which was not in their favor.
In favor of Gihok?
No, in favor of Gihok.
Okay.
And so, there he was, now they have power. And so, let's get rid of the judges who were involved in the matter.
DSP Edmond Ohinesa is the only surviving member of the police investigative team that first probed the matter. He explains that right from the beginning, the leadership of the PNDC set out to cause disaffection for these judges.
At the time when they established or the coup came into place, the aim of the ruling government was to discredit the judiciary. So they made claims that these judges, they were corrupt. But one thing common is that they all reviewed AFRC convictions. And everybody knows that these convictions were not safe. People were tortured, and how can you try our generals and top brass within minutes and then say they are guilty, sentenced to death? This happens only in, I would say, backward systems.
There was growing anxiety among the populace, which culminated in massive pressure on the military government. On 15th July 1982, the PNDC set up the Special Investigative Board to investigate the abduction and killing. K.B. Kwanson was director of the Bureau of National Investigations, BNI. He explains this was because many believed the military had lost the legitimacy to independently investigate the matter.
There was a curfew in force, there were patrols in force, and to be able to breach the curfew, you have to have a pass. And there were layers of passes. One pass doesn't take you everywhere. Some pass will end you somewhere. So if judges were, people were abducted at different places, then the presumption in my mind, when I heard of those, that this might be something that is an inside job. If in the night you hear that people have been abducted, you don't know where they were, actually, there might be some investigation, not at my level alone, but at the level of the Minister for the Interior.
Okay.
At the level of the normal government, there was investigation. Everybody was trying to find out what has happened. See? So there was investigation. But the problem we had, me and some other colleagues, is when you analyze and you are almost certain that no outsiders could have come to do it, then you have a problem.
Mr. Kwanson laid bare the fact that the SIB's job was always going to be a difficult one, and that was why then head of internal security, Johnny Hansen, recused himself as chairman of the board.
I remember that Mr. Johnny Hansen, the secretary for the interior,
Yeah.
he was my first boss. I had about 3 or 4 bosses.
I see.
He controlled the interior, police, immigration, prisons, fire service. So he was on paper in charge of internal security. So the first opportunity I got, I went to him to discuss. And he had gone to the government to go and discuss. And the initial indication was that there was going to be a committee headed by him.
The Interior Minister?
Yes. But there was a smart guy. He said no, they should get an independent body. Because of the circumstances, if he chaired the committee and the committee came out with any pronouncements that did not implicate the government, there was going to be reaction. So So there should be an independent body. That is why the Special Investigation Board was constituted under Judge
Justice Azukrab.
Yeah.
The new chairman of the board was Justice Samuel Azukrab, a retired Chief Justice. The board was assisted by a police investigation team. We traced DSP Ohinesa, now retired and domiciled in the United Kingdom, to find out how the killers of the judges were found.
I was on duty at the information room as a police officer in charge of all the detectives. Then they brought in a drunken policeman who had been picked up by the Minister for Highways. They were repairing the roads in the night. So he brought this drunken policeman to the headquarters. At that time, the IGP Kublen was there, Kwashiga was there, a few other dignitaries, they were all there. Then I joined them, we were just talking. And then this minister, he intimated that this judge's affair, he went to the port of Tema and found some Fiat Campagnolas, and he felt he could ask for one of them, which he thinks could help him in his work. Okay, somewhere along the line, the news came out that, oh, some soldiers have come to take 2. There were 4. Some soldiers have come to seize 2 of the Fiat Campagnolas. Okay. So when I had all that information, I was having the next step of action. I went straight to my Commissioner of Police, CID, of blessed memory. I said, sir, I want to go to Tema Port. I went there, and to cut a long story short, at the port, there is a book, vehicles living, a logbook. If you're taking any vehicle out of the port, you got to sign and print your name. So we have found out when the vehicles were imported, when they arrived. Okay. So it took us about 3 months. Then I found the name of America. It isn't by magic. You see, so when we got the name of America, because he signed for the vehicles, then we decided to pursue that line. We got to know his girlfriend, that they call themselves liaison officers in the broadcasting house. They could go to Rawlins's house. They could, you see, they had all the freedom to do whatever they like. So, in the process, we decided to question America. Okay, the first time we met him at the regional special branch headquarters, because those places we have got the gadgets, everything to record whatever. We met America, and then my senior, my Idana, said, we are here to... He wouldn't let him finish. He said, no. How can I plan against my own man, Rawlins? No. You see, Chikata decided to arrest all the people closer to Rawlins, because Rawlins was went to, how do you call it, Libya. There was an abortive OAU conference. And because some of these boys, they never liked Kojo Chikata, and Rawlins had lied to them that Kojo Chikata was his personal friend. Chikata felt this was the time to get all these boys rounded up so that they can have their peace of mind for their agenda. So in the same way, America said no. Because, how do you call him? Yidana said, no, we are not here because of Rawlings. We are here because of the judges who have been killed. So I also read it in the papers. Then I said, okay, if you will not talk, mind you, the others have talked to us. That's changed the whole atmosphere. Then he said we should go and come tomorrow. And you see, in the cells, there are a lot of people there who advise. So somebody told him that it is better for him to say his part of the story so that they don't pile everything on him. The following day when he went, he started talking like a parrot. Oh, yeah, I went to pick, the Amatekwe came and took me around to show me the places where the people live. And then there is something they call authority note. He gave me an authority note. That is what you can use to beat the curfew. So eventually, it was America who told us about the others. And we tried to, because they were all on the loose. They never knew anybody was tracing them. One was arrested around Penta, and I led the operation to arrest Jandu. No, it's Tekmo, who was arrested around Tesano area. And as for Tekmo, when we arrested him, he had a revolver in his socks. These were young lads. They were adventurous, but I wouldn't say they were murderers.
As soon as the members of the board commenced their work, it became apparent that the authorities were determined to frustrate them in their efforts to unearth the truth behind the killings and bring the culprits to justice. ASP William Odro of the BNI, who had disobeyed instructions to spy on his colleagues, was forced to flee into exile. He was condemned as a foreign agent, tried in absentia, and sentenced to 10 years imprisonment. This was his testimony when he appeared before the National Reconciliation Commission.
I asked him, why are you arresting me? What have I done? You better tell me something, not this. He looked at my face and said, look, listen, we are the government. We could do anything we want. So I am not obliged to tell you whether you have done this or that.
I, Jacob Yabuni Yidana.
CSP Jacob Yabuni Yidana, the leader of the police investigative team, charged to help the SIB find the killers of the judges, was arrested. He was put before a public tribunal and convicted of harboring an alleged coup plotter. But the NRC concluded that CSP Yidana was himself not sleeping at home and could not have been aware of the presence of the alleged coup plotter in his house. He was sentenced to 8 years imprisonment. He was kept in detention without charge or trial for a further 4 years. His release came only after the 1992 Constitution had come into force.
The Commissioner CID at the time decided to constitute a team of detectives to find out those who did it and why. And we had an assistant commissioner of police who gradually faded out. So I remained the head of the investigation. So we're able to put pieces and pieces of information together and finally arrested the 4 people who perpetrated the crime: America, Senya, Tepo, and Jandu. And in the course of interrogation, they then mentioned Amatekwe. Then we brought in Amatekwe, who also mentioned Captain Kojo Chikata retired. And then just at that time, a board had been set to supervise our work. So all our reports went to the Special Investigations Board. And at the end of the investigations, the board made recommendations. But before the board finished its final report, I had been arrested.
The other member of this team, DSP Ohinesa, tells us he had to run for his life, abandoning his young family.
It was the day of our independence, celebration of our day of our independence. Then Mr. Idana had some friend called Afua Sewabek, who was a journalist. I was driving on St. Teresa's Road in North Kanisha. When she held my car, I stopped. And she told me, "Oh, they have arrested your friend." And I said, who arrested you? She said, "The soldiers." I asked her, "Where is she?" She said, "At Special Branch." So I drove straight to the Special Branch headquarters, and to my surprise, they said, "No, they won't allow me to see him." They confirmed that he was there, but they won't let me see him. Okay. So I realized, it dawned on me, because previously they had seized Idana's passport. They also got hold of my passport, or under the pretext they were going to send you abroad and other things. But normally when you're going abroad, they don't seize your passport. So when I told Idana about my case, and he sat in his chair there, and tears were running down his cheeks, he realized that our lives are now in real danger.
In its report, the Special Investigative Board recommended that the following persons be charged with complicity in the abduction and killing of the judges and the retired army officer: Joaquim Amatekwe, member of the PNDC; Lance Corporal Samuel Amedeka; Lance Corporal Samuel Michael Senya; Johnny Jandu, ex-soldier; Tony Tekpo, ex-soldier; Lance Corporal Gordon Kou; Lance Corporal Maman Sruwu; Lance Corporal Victor Gomelishio; Sergeant Alolga Akatapore, member of the PNDC; retired Captain Kojo Chikata, security advisor to the PNDC. On receipt of the report, then Attorney General George Akins took the view that the evidence against 5 of them, Lance Corporal Kou, Lance Corporal Nsruwu, Lance Corporal Gomelishio, Sergeant Alolga Akatapore, and Captain Kojo Chikata, were insufficient, and thus decided not to prosecute them. The decision not to prosecute these persons surprised many who thought that the only sure way for the PNDC to erase the suspicion that it had a hand in the murders was to accept the recommendations of the board. Further doubt was raised in the public when Akins went back on his declared intention to put the accused persons on trial before the High Court. He rather put them before the Public Tribunal, a body which commanded little respect among the populace in general and the Ghana Bar Association in particular for its erratic approach to the administration of justice. But George Ejekum, who chaired the Public Tribunal, insists the suspects could not be guaranteed a fair trial if they were put before the normal courts.
They had a fair trial because if they had been tried by colleagues of the judges, they would have been in a much more difficult situation. The judges' own colleagues and so on and so forth. So as for that, I don't think that, you see, some of these things are political opinions expressed by people here and there, and I don't have a problem with that. We tried so many cases, and that time the cases we tried and the results that came, that reduced the tension and brought stability into the country.
Let me be clear in my mind on this matter too.
Yeah.
Why was there a need to form these tribunals? Weren't there courts in the country then?
There was a belief by the then the PNDC that justice system was not being administered the way that they felt that it should be administered. And so as part of the PNDC.
Was it about procedure? Was it
not
about
necessarily the procedures
or the people who were involved?
The kind of results, delays, and all those. I mean, it was a package of grievances they had against the court system.
And this was largely not from the people, but from the leadership of the PNDC.
No, because it was the PNDC
wasn't power,
they didn't come to power through an election, so it couldn't have come from the people. It emanated from. It was the policy of the PNDC to set up tribunals.
Okay, now let me get this also clarified.
And let me, if I can explain to you, you know, there was a parallel, not only tribunals, they set up the Citizen Vetting Committee, they set up the National Investigations Committee, the One Man, One House Committee, all those parallel systems sort of parallel some of the existing state institutions. Yes.
On 19th June 1983, while the trial of Amate Kwei, Lance Corporal Medeka, Lance Corporal Senya, Jandu and Tepo was in progress, there was a jailbreak at the prisons and Lance Corporal Amedeka, Jandu and Tepo escaped. Lance Corporal Amedeka managed to flee from the country, but Jandu and Tepo were recaptured. Meanwhile, the trial continued at the public tribunal. Amate Kwei, Lance Corporal Medeka, Lance Corporal Senya, Jandu and Tepo were found guilty and sentenced to death. Tepo was executed some days before the public tribunal found him guilty and sentenced him to death. The dead Tepo was sentenced by Judge Ejekum's tribunal to death on 15th August 1983. This move was described by the NRC as absurd, maintaining Tepo's execution 2 days earlier, when the trial was still in progress, constituted a gross violation of his right to fair trial. But according to Judge Ejekum, another public tribunal had tried, convicted, and sentenced Tepo to death for acts in connection with the 19th June jailbreak, and that it was in execution of the sentence that he was shot before the second trial had been concluded.
This was in the NRC report said by, I read it, and I was very surprised Justice Abasechi could make the comments. Look, when the jailbreak came, the June 19th jailbreak, they came out, Tepo and I think another person, they took part in another coup. Okay? So, and I think they killed some people during the coup d'etat. So, they were put on trial. There was the June 16th trial, the June 19th trial, and the Judges Murder trial, almost going on simultaneously. So, Tepo was standing 2 trials. If I'm right, June 19th and the murder of the judges. So when we broke to deliver our judgment, I think the Saturday preceding the day we gave the judgment, I heard on the radio that Tepo, that his trial had ended and he had been sentenced to death. So Tepo was shot before we passed sentence. And Justice Abasechi was criticizing me in his report that if somebody had been shot, why should I sentence him to death again? But a court doesn't go by radio announcement. We are trying the person who was before the court. We have put the case for judgment. If the radio says he has been shot, why was any fact presented to the court that he had been shot? When a case is tried by a tribunal, like the Judges Murder, when we finish, under the law, we have to take all the proceedings and everything and put a letter on it and submit it to the PNDC.
Okay.
So the PNDC will meet and decide whether they accept the court ruling or not before they confirm. The PNDC has to confirm the sentences. So it's not.
Oh, really?
Yes, yes.
So yours was merely like a suggestion?
Yes. No, you will make a suggestion. And it is for the PNDC. If you take this book on the judges, you will see the covering letter I wrote to the PNDC, submitting the record to the PNDC that this is the judgment we have found. And in some of the cases, the PNDC did not confirm the sentences. Apart from Tepo, as I'm telling you, who had been executed already. But we passed the sentence and I have no regret about it.
Speaking on his own behalf at the trial on 9th August 1983, Tepo said,
"My full name is Evans Heckle Tepo alias Tony. Mr. Chairman, and members of the panel, I'd like you to know that I, Tony Heckle Tekpo, never knew these judges nor the retired major in my life. And I have never had any grudge with any of them. Therefore, I want you, the panel, Ghanaians, and the whole world to know that I, Tony, I am not a murderer. But there's a brain behind this. I knew very well that I was taking part in a national assignment, which was authorized by the PNDC. We were to arrest these judges and the major, which later turned out to be the mysterious end of their lives. Now I know that I've been used wrongly against these people. I therefore send my sympathy to their families and may their souls rest in peace. Now to the Attorney General, I would like to ask him if he really feels sympathy for his own colleagues who were murdered in cold blood. If yes, I would like to know why he has managed to deny us our rights and justice. I'd like to remind him that there is no smoke without fire. Therefore, there is a brain behind the killing of these people. If the Attorney General tried to hide the facts behind this case, then I don't know what his end will be. Because I have been denied all my rights and justice, and I am therefore not prepared to open my defense in this tribunal. I rather prefer to sacrifice myself and die at the tertiary range on my truth. I once again call upon the 30th Operational Commander, Lance Corporal America, Mr. Amatekwe, Sergeant Anluga Akatapore, the chairman of the PNDC, who I know very well and I trusted before as J.J. Rawlings, Captain Kojo Chikata, Special Advisor to the Council, and by then members of the PNDC to come out and tell Ghanaians and the whole world the truth behind the killing of these 3 High Court judges and the retired major. I therefore emphasize on it once again that I would like to die at the tertiary range on my truth than to be a slave on someone's land.
What then was the truth? As the National Reconciliation Commission states in its report, the truth was that the murderers knew that they were on an assignment which had the blessing of the PNDC. This account is also corroborated by ASP Ohenesa.
As for the idea of who killed the judges, it's very simple. We were to investigate to find out who did actually kill the judges, and also to find out who orchestrated or who instructed these young soldiers. Well, I would say that they were loyal to the system and they knew that they were doing a national exercise.
They said they were carrying out instructions.
Yeah.
That was their defense. That they felt that they were carrying out state instructions.
So that really could not be stopped.
And the military legal department came in as to what he said. They were soldiers. So the question was, what is a legal command in the military?
Okay.
And whether if you are asked to carry out an illegal command, you have to carry it out. So they brought the military regulations, and then that time I think the director of the legal directorate in the military came and testified and showed what are legal commands and illegal commands. Yeah. So if now as we are sitting here, if Major Akwa was retired, he was actually a major, not a major general. But if you are asked to go and kill somebody and you are a soldier and you carry it out and it's no war, it's an illegal command. It's an illegal command.
I see.
Your commander cannot tell you to go and shoot somebody if they carry out a firing squad.
Did these lance corporals have what it takes to appreciate these things?
Look, these boys are boys companies, boys, you know.
Yeah.
what they call Junior Leaders Regiment. Junior Leaders Regiment. And if you study the history of coups in Ghana, until recently, all the coups emanated from those boys.
Of course, there is no evidence to suggest that the PNDC held a formal meeting at which it decided to abduct and perhaps murder the judges and the retired army officer. The commission further noted that for a decision of such moment, Rawlings looked to a coterie of advisors, which included Captain Kojo Chikata and the smart Oxford-trained lawyer Chachu Chikata. Chachu Chikata was lawyer for Captain Kojo Chikata when he went before both the SIB and the Public Tribunal, and even went to court for him during the NRC's review. He rejects the claim that he was complicit or had done anything wrong in his advisory roles.
This is an outrageous claim. It's completely outrageous because, I mean, I certainly, and I know that from the bottom of my heart, I have absolutely nothing to do with the murder of the judges. I know that in respect of my dealings with both President Rawlings and Captain Chikata, this was never something that came up for us to be accused of in some sort of conspiracy to have dealt with. You know, the day that I heard that judges have been abducted, I was actually in court in Ho. I had left Accra in the morning, not having heard anything. There was a case I was doing for some farmers in the Volta region in Ho, and I had driven to Ho, not having heard about the murder of the judges. As I'm entering the town, I don't actually know Ho. I didn't know Ho well, and I didn't know where the courts were. So I was looking out for somebody who could help me, and fortunately, I saw a lawyer, as he was then, now Justice Jones Doche. I saw him, and then I stopped the car, and I was just going to ask him for directions to the courts. He was a student of mine as well in Legon, and so I knew him well. And then he asked me about this news about abduction of judges. I was completely dumbfounded. And so all I had to end up saying to him was, well, when I get back to Accra, I'll have to hear about this. I knew nothing about it, and I mean, so that's why I'm saying that I have a sense of outrage about these kinds of allegations, because the facts are very clear and they're well known. I'm sure Justice Jones Doche would not mind my making this public.
A few days before Amatekwe's execution, a prayer meeting was held for him at the Nsawam prisons. According to Squadron Leader George Tego, in the course of the meeting, Kwe made a statement about his role in the whole sordid affair. Speaking in the Ghana language, Kwe said,
Mifi Isha, civilian Jimmy, Flight Lieutenant John J. Rawlings, Kojo Chikata, Mifata, ni wo plani ake wo ba mumu Kojo loy ni tishi ewo revolution le Captain Kojo Chikata le ji money fe no fe no le ji master le ji money fe mi PNDC member le Flight Lieutenant John J. Rawlings ke Kojo Chikata amejime ni femi PNDC member no hewo no feno ni amekeo mi le isani mafi mi fi isha mi fatahi ameke ake mi kwe nuchumo leno shigbeke biye ye lan ameke koni ame kakpata nibi ahie ameke mikwe no fe no pepepe mifi isha mi ji civilian le mi halarita army officer se ni Flight Lieutenant John J. Rawlings ke Kojo Chikata hala jaji fuyeten le mife isha ka ke mi kemo Yehowa obolole ike Captain Kojo Chikata ji monife no fe no ija ke leji onukpa ni ko National Chief Security no ohiwole no fe no ni afiole le kono mife isha Yehowa minkpa bufai esa ni mafe nakai no ni akemi ya fele shi mife isha minkpa fai mife isha ni wogbeje mena ni wola.
This account is endorsed by the NRC as it insists that without official backing, Amatekwe had neither the capacity nor the means to commit such a heinous crime. The observed behavior of Amatekwe at the prisons also confirmed that he knew that the operation was authorized by those who wielded power at the time.
Hey, stop there! Stop right there! Stop there!
It's obvious an operational pass was given for a vehicle carrying at least 3 Superior Court judges, which meandered through almost 50 kilometers from their residence at Ridge, then picked up Major retired Sam Akwa at Jolu, and then used the motorway to Mbundase. Well, the head of security then, Captain Chikata, agrees the man that abducted the judges indeed has some form of clearance, even though he couldn't say who authorized it.
The operational pass is issued from the Operations Department of PNDC headquarters, and it is normally issued by the operations officer or his deputy, or the officer who will be on duty if there is an emergency. Those are the only people who can issue the operational pass.
Officer, you are referring to army officers, I suppose?
Oh, yeah, military officers.
Oh, I see.
The police also have their own system of issuing operational passes, and I believe that it will follow on the same lines. Yeah.
You know, I have in mind, this question relates to the vehicles that the convicted prisoners used in carrying the people that they murdered. And it came to our attention that their movement was during the curfew hours, and that they had access to operational pass. So I'm wondering who might have issued this operational pass to the convicted prisoners for them to carry out this act.
The operational pass would have been issued by the officer, the operations officer in PNDC HQ.
I see. Is it possible for us to identify a particular officer?
If you
so that we can question.
If you see the pass, you will see his signature on it. The officer must sign the pass.
The official sequence of events from the NRC as that at a hastily summoned meeting at the Gonda Barracks, at which Captain Chikata and Chachichukata were present, Rollins sent for Amatekwe, whom they all knew had carried out the abduction. According to the then Attorney General, George Akins, Amatekwe was sent for. When he came and was told to go and release the captives, he responded that they had finished them, meaning they had killed them. The commission further made this declaration: if Flight Lieutenant Rollins did not have foreknowledge of the murder, he certainly had foreknowledge of the abduction. When the commission confronted Flight Lieutenant Rollins with Justice Akin's statement on the meeting at the Gonda Barracks, he returned to his mentor Chachichukata to get him out. In a written response to the commission later, Mr. Rollins said,
"What is being described by Justice G.E.K. Akins as containing your letter seems natural enough to me as what may have happened. I would, however, suggest you cross-check with Mr. Chachu Chikata for confirmation. What I find rather puzzling is the mention of the name of the late Amate Kwe by me, seemingly out of the blue. I would suggest that another invitation is extended to Mr. Akins and any other persons who may have been around then, whether or not the late Amate Kwe's name did not emerge as part of the rumors making the rounds.
The NRC's narrative proceeds to say that after the deed was done and it became public, Flight Lieutenant Rawlings and Captain Chikata went to great lengths to distance themselves from the murders. As a member of the SIB investigation team, William Odro told the NRC Captain Chikata set about hounding him as Rawlings tried to get Amate Kwe to make a statement clearing them of responsibility for the act.
Because of the investigation into the abduction and murder of the judges and the army officer, Kojo Chikata, Rawlings, and the so-called PNDC government had arrested me. I said, well, if you had arrested me and I have been pressing for the cause of my arrest and you could not tell me, then I must tell you that you are doing this on account of my participation in the investigation of the abduction and murder of the judges and the army officer. He said, oh, you forget about that. We have killed them, and so what? What are you people saying? All that you people are doing will not go anywhere. I said it will go anywhere. Then he came in again. I challenged him on that, and then he came in again and said, well, even you are a spy for a foreign power. I said, my God, I had never spied in my life.
Commander Asasijima, the security coordinator who worked under Captain Chikata, was allegedly used to do this job. He was dispatched together with Reverend Father Damwa, a Catholic priest and former member of the PNDC, to Ashford prisons, where Amate Kwe was taken on his way to the execution ground. Captain Kojo Chikata had cause to believe this mission to extract some form of confession from Amate Kwe was successful, as he told the NRC, Commander Asasijima and the Reverend Father told him Amate Kwe apologized to him.
Since the SIB report, the trial of those who were convicted for the murder, in spite of the fact that I appeared before the SIB and denied all the allegations which have been leveled against me, that I was a prosecution witness during the trial, and that the AG did not prosecute me for the reasons that he had given. People still continue to level allegations against me as a conspirator in the crime to murder the judges and Major Alco.
But when questioned about the whereabouts of this tape, Commander Asasijima maintained the tape recorder given to him by Rawlings to record any statement Amate Kwe might make failed.
I told the committee that the person who gave me the recorder, it was those days, it was one of these.
That's Flight Lieutenant George Rawlings.
Well, I don't remember, but let me tell the story.
Okay.
Yes, the person who gave me the recorder. The recorder was very innovative, and you know, about that time it was voice activated. You know, yeah, and it was new. And by the time we finished with the proceedings, and I checked, it are not recorded. It are not recorded. Yeah, but thank God. Amate Kwe was talked to when he was tied to the sticks, and he said the same thing that he told me.
And that recording was done by former President Rawlings.
Do
you think we got to the bottom of the matter?
Oh, sure. People were found, charged, convicted,
sentenced, and executed.
The SIB indicted Captain Chikata. He was never tried.
Oh, that matter has been settled, you know. And Amatekwe told me personally that he didn't regret killing the judges, which I found very, very irritating. Oh. But the fact that he mentioned Captain Chikata's name, that one he regretted.
The NRC rejected both Captain Chikata and Commander Asasi Jime's claim, stating that it was more likely Amatekwe either refused to make a statement at all or made one which did not meet the expectations of Rawlings. The commission knows that on being informed of the failure of Commander Asasi Jime's mission, Flight Lieutenant Rawlings picked up a tape recorder and rushed to the police firing range at Ofankor, Accra, where the execution party had gathered. He brought proceedings to a temporary halt, walked over to Amatekwe and tried to get him to talk. Flight Lieutenant Rawlings played back to some of those present what Amatekwe was supposed to have said. It was later flaunted about that Flight Lieutenant Rawlings played the tape to some journalists, among them Kojo Yanka, editor of the Daily Graphic, who reported in his paper that Amatekwe had cleared Captain Chikata, against whom the SIB had made adverse findings of complicity in the murders. For publishing what Amatekwe was supposed to have said, the editor of the Daily Graphic was dismissed. To assist the commission in arriving at the truth of the matter, Flight Lieutenant Rawlings was invited to produce the tape. His answer was that he could not find it.
The commission has evidence before it given by Naval Commander Asasi Jima.
Yes.
And he states in his testimony before the commission, yes, that you have in your custody an audio recording made by yourself,
yes,
on the day of the execution of Mr. Joachim Amatekwe.
Yes.
And that you recorded this just before the execution, sometime in 1983.
Yes.
Your Excellency, is that correct?
Amatekwe did what I thought was most ignoble. I'd known Amatekwe as a very disciplined person, as a person who was not a liar, not a thief, a man who commanded a lot of respect, a very dedicated person. And for him to have been engaged in the misuse of soldiers, to do what he did when we came into office.
Sir, with respect, if I could draw you back.
Don't. I'm building it up.
You are building up?
Yes.
Okay.
For him to have been engaged in the misuse of good soldiers for what happened, and worst of all, to use the name of an innocent person, was most painful, not just for me, but for him as well, in terms of my image and impression of him. And for me, I thought it was an opportunity to give Kwe an opportunity to give Kwe the chance to cleanse, yes, his soul, his spirit before he meets his creator. Not only that, but I'm not going to have a situation where an innocent man is going to live under the cloud that he mentioned yesterday for 20 years. My wife, keys, etc., all these, atrocious fabrications. And for me, in fact, I could not even recollect that I had asked Commander Asasi Jima till I heard about it yesterday. I mean, there are lots of things I cannot recollect, but I can very well imagine that I must have done so when he said he was going with Reverend Damois. Okay. Yes. And
so
wait a minute, when it didn't work out, that's when I decided, no, I'm not going to let this opportunity slip. So I must have obviously gotten a tape myself and followed the convoy from wherever to the point before he was executed. And I approached him as he was tied to the stakes
And I came close to Amadikwe. Don't let this opportunity slip to cleanse. I mean, we're not perfect. You've, what do you call it? You've personalized an issue, something that you should have risen above in terms of, trying to take the lives of people. We had political objectives. And it's hurt. It's hurting all of us. It's hurt you. It's hurt all of us. But please, I mean, before you meet your creator, let me have that ultimate truth. Let me have that beautiful truth. Restore some of my respect before you go. And I was so glad when he vindicated Captain Chikata.
And you recall what his words were, in essence at least?
Yeah, I mean, he pronounced the innocence of Captain Chikata and asked for his forgiveness, etc., And to be quite frank, to be quite honest, I think either a day or so after, or probably a day or so after, I must have invited some of the journalists and played the tape to them. And I believe, what's his name? Mr. Kojo Yanka, who was the editor. Is that his name? Kojo Yanka? He was the editor of the Graphic then. Is that his name?
Say, I don't quite recall, but
oh, come on, you should know.
We can check out.
Yes. Thank you very much.
We know that.
Thank you. He was the editor of the Graphic then. He gave very wide publicity to it. Quite frankly, that was not my intention then. When I was playing it to them, I was hoping would find an appropriate occasion when to put this case across. So unfortunately, he went ahead. Everybody listened to it. He went ahead and published, what the tape recording had to say. And I remember the following day or so, I called him and I reproached him. I said, look, I mean, I didn't think you'd do this, because that was not the moment. Because sometimes if truths are not told in the appropriate context or the appropriate platform and at the appropriate time, people put question marks and doubts on it.
The NRC, however, revealed that evidence given by a witness who was present at the execution site and heard the tape as played by Flight Lieutenant Rawlings after he had spoken to Amatekwe did not make any statement clearing Captain Chikata of complicity in the murders. What this witness heard, according to the commission, was Amatekwe saying in the recording that he had a wife and child who needed to be looked after and requested that they be provided with an estate house. The commission further concluded that the longer version, which was played to journalists, must have been a doctored copy of the original. The National Reconciliation Commission, after its thorough review, came to the conclusion that
the SIB found Captain Chikata to be a co-conspirator in the abduction and cold-blooded murder of the judges and the retired army officer. But like Amatekwe, Captain Chikata could not by himself have carried out the deed because he was not even a member of the PNDC. It needed the authority of someone higher up, and that person was Flight Lieutenant Rawlings, who, according to evidence before the commission, had months before he succeeded in overthrowing the Liman administration, threatened to punish the judges who had freed so-called AFRC convicts. Without his express orders or tacit approval, the operational pass would not have been issued to Amedeka and his gang, insisting it was the public reaction to the abduction that led the cabal to beat a retreat and try to undo what had already been done. The search for a scapegoat began, and the misguided Amatekwe was found to fill the role. Like a man who rode on the back of a tiger, he did not know how to get off and ended up in its mouth.
a conclusion Captain Chikata rejected even before the commission.
In the evidence of the ICIB, they all stated that they were doing what they did under the instructions of Amatekwe. That is what all of them said in the evidence before the ICIB and before the tribunal. Amatekwe was a member of the PNDC, yes. That is what they all said.
Did he hold any special position?
He was a member of the PNDC in charge of TUC affairs.
So does it mean any member of PNDC can get hold of any of the soldiers and give them orders to do anything?
That is what they did. I'm not saying that that is legal. That is what they said they did.
He maintained Amartey Quaye and his gang did kill the judges, and that surely is the end of the matter for him.
My dear General, that is why Amartey Quaye was prosecuted and executed. It was not right for him to have done what he did. It was not a matter of system. Amartey Quaye was responsible for the crime he committed with America and the others.
He also told the commission he had been in great pain due to these accusations.
For the past 20 years, I have been living under the pain of having these allegations made against me year in, year out, until today. And I have done my best this morning to demonstrate to this commission why I believe that the ICIB, after they issued their initial report on the 6th of November, began a political conspiracy against me. I can't precisely say why, but I believe because of the actions that they took and the circumstances of the time, that they were determined to have me removed from my position in the government, to discredit me and thereby discredit the government and prepare for the overthrow of the government. I have named the people who I believe took part in this conspiracy. Members of the board: Justice Azukrab, Mr. Lindsay, Reverend Dovlo, Jobo, Reverend Jobo. Mr. Chris is now dead, and Mr. Amui. Those who helped them were, of course, some members of the police group attached to them, Idana and Odro, who took that famous statement, which the ICIB refers to as the historic statement of 23rd November 1982. And of course, Brigadier Nunu Mensah. For the reasons that I have given you regarding the circumstances under which he knew beforehand what Amartey Quaye was going to say in his statement of 23rd November. Mr. Chairman, I said that for 20 years I've been living under the pain of this monstrous allegation that I participated in this crime. I'm just pleading to you, members of this commission, to make available here the persons that I have named, so that I can look them in the eye and ask them certain questions about how they came to engage themselves in such an elaborate frame-up which nearly cost my life. After all, this commission has given its platform to an international con man, Mr. Chris Asher, who came here, raved and ranted for 2 hours, making all sorts of allegations against me, and I'm just pleading to give some opportunity for me also to question these people. After all, former Chief Justice of Ghana, a priest, Jobo, former head of CID, to ask them why they took part in such a conspiracy to frame me up.
George Ejekum of the Public Tribunal looks back on the past and concludes that the unending controversy surrounding the killing of the judges is all about the purported role of Captain Kojo Chikata, who was named in the SIB report as the mastermind of the abduction and killing of the judges. He, however, justifies why then Attorney General J.E.A. Akins did not prosecute Captain Chikata.
What the Justice Akins did, because this whole recurring thing is more of Captain Chikata.
Yeah.
And what Justice Akins did was to tender him in the court, to give Amartey Quaye the opportunity to confront him. And if he had done so and something else had developed during the cross-examination, that would have been a different thing.
I believe that then Attorney General was really going to be able to deal with more like an advisor to the chairman of the PNDC.
So I think that at that time he did what he did to the best of his
I get that, but was it politically possible at that time?
Oh, but he brought Amartey Quaye.
Very much so. I mean, Amartey Quaye was not a bigger fish like Captain Chikata.
No. Amartey Quaye was a very influential member of the PNDC.
I get you. Not to the stature of Captain Chikata, you would agree.
Well, to some extent, but they were all PNDC members. And for example, Amedeka, I can tell you that Amedeka was much more powerful, maybe than Kojo Chikata at that time, because of the role that Amedeka was playing.
"36 years after the killing of these judges, and some 12 years after the Truth and Reconciliation Commission had sought to put the matter to rest, questions still remain whether the mystery of the murder has been unraveled to its definitive end. First, Kwabena J-Japon, whose father was one of the murdered judges, insists the full truth was never told.
Everybody knows, those who were there knows what happened. As I said, we all recognize the fact that the full truth was never told. In fact, Amedeka, nobody knows what has happened to Amedeka. He escaped jail. He was the leader of the gang that carried out the executions. And there were many times he sneaked back into the country and out, but nobody knows what has happened to him.
General Nunu Mensah, who was the Chief of Defense Staff, agrees.
This is a serious matter, not a military matter. This is a government. And members of the government were led to have been involved. It's even more serious.
Which members can come?
There were allegations of, I mentioned Amartey Quaye. I was a member of the government.
Yeah.
There was Akatapori, how do you know Akatapori?
Yes, Akatapori.
There were allegations like that, even though he wasn't involved. And there are many others were being thrown around.
Were there allegations that Captain Chikata was part of it?
There were all kinds of allegations. All kinds of allegations. And I don't think that in all these matters, you get to the bottom.
But odds, we may never get to the bottom of the matter. The former Bar Association president and now member of the Council of State, Sam Okujeto, also thinks there is indeed more to the story than what has been unraveled.
They created the atmosphere that enabled Amartey Quaye, who was a member of the PNDC, to use that position on a curfew period to go and abduct judges, to go and kill. And so the PNDC themselves just had us guilty, because they created the atmosphere.
Just to hold our opinions.
I have always heard it, and I said that was a brutal regime. This is why I compiled this list of all these people who were killed, and I can tell you that nobody was prosecuted for killing all these people. Up to today, nobody has been prosecuted.
Most Reverend Charles Palmer Bako, a member of the commission, who spent years even after the commission's work still counseling victims and petitioners, support claims that the commission could not get to the bottom of the matter of the killing of the judges.
When America sat on the case of the murder of President John Fitzgerald Kennedy, Lee Harvey Oswald was the one who was accused. Before Lee Harvey Oswald could bring out the whole matter, he was also killed by somebody else. And that person was also killed by another body else. Can we ever get the truth of who killed John Fitzgerald Kennedy. He's not the one who triggered the bullet, the one who mandated his killing, the one who sent for him, the one who plotted. Can we ever get the full truth? I am looking at something that we also came face to face with, even when we're dealing with the issue of the judges and the general who was involved. There have been too many subsequent killings, and people have gone with the story.
He is convinced the families of these judges and the army major may only find respite in the law courts, as the commission left a window of opportunity for that form of remedy.
If anybody expected that commission to come out with a judicial verdict, then the person was not conversant with the Act 611, which established the commission. The commission was established to afford Ghanaians an opportunity of reconciliation, not of judgment. However, when we finished our work, we handed over all the documents to the Attorney General's department with the proviso that if anybody felt that he or she had not gotten justice, he or she had the right to go to the law courts for it. Ours was not a law court.
George Ejekum, who convicted Amartey Quaye and the four, wants anybody with evidence to the contrary to proceed to the courts.
If today there's fresh evidence against any of the persons, the person can be put on trial. If you take somebody to court, there must be evidence.
So, for example, the suggestion from G.E.K. Akins.
He said if in future, if there's fresh evidence, that person can be put on trial. So if somebody thinks, and that is the Attorney General thinks that he has got fresh evidence which can merit a conviction, then he should bring the person to trial.
A beneficiary of the 1981 coup and lawyer, Captain retired Nkrabea Efadate, who worked closely with the PNDC, believes that Captain Chikata may only be able to remove this albatross if he is prosecuted and exonerated.
It would have been better if Captain Kojo Chikata had been prosecuted and set free by the tribunal. If the tribunal had acquitted and discharged him, it would have been far, far better for him. Because now he lives with this conscience, this issue of some people are saying that he ought to have been prosecuted. Some people are saying that he was the mastermind. And some people are saying that the white paper was not appropriate. And, but I think if I were to have been his lawyer in those days and given the influence that I may have wielded as his lawyer, I would have recommended that, look, Master, submit yourself, go through the mail, let you be prosecuted, and then be acquitted and discharged. Then you come back with a clean conscience and for posterity.
But Chachu Chikata chronicles what he considers to be a litany of lies and persecution deliberately concocted to tarnish the good image of his relative.
The reality of the matter is that if you look at the facts and circumstances around that whole situation, there's no basis for someone like Captain Chikata even to be brought into the picture. Captain Chikata really did not even have as close a relationship with Amartey Quaye as I had. I had been the lawyer for them. And, as a young member of the PNDC, he would often, interact with me, not with Captain Chikata. So that whole attempt to rope him in, was completely without basis. And I think the people who did it, they know the facts. The murder of the judges is something that I felt very deeply and passionately myself. I mean, these were judges that I knew personally. These were judges that I knew and very, very closely. I mean, and so I don't take lightly the kind of accusation that was being made. I don't take that lightly at all. And I was outraged at the way in which it was orchestrated. And I was outraged at the people who participated in that outrage. And the fact that they lent themselves to be part of something that was so untruthful, so unfair, so unjust.
It is pretty clear that who directly killed the judges and the retired army officer and why they were killed may have been resolved inconclusively. What 36 years of one probe or the other has not resolved conclusively is who else should have paid the price yet walks freely today.
Is this the much expected closure that many believe families of the slain judges deserve? Let's get to a quick review of what you've just seen. So you watched the documentary, and I'm sure you did with your family as well. You follow the narratives, the accounts, the opinions, and the entire research work that was brought to you by our documentary team. Thousands of people around the country were glued to their set during this broadcast, and I'm sure that the discussion has already started in your home. We'll get to the family of the killed judges to talk about it, and we'll get on social media to find out what the discussion has been so far. Already, our team is in the home of Kwabena Ejapon, son of late Justice Kwadwo Ejapon, and we'll be crossing over to them. The team is there led by Roland Walker, and then we'll have that conversation. So, like I said, you've seen the documentary. We took you through the beginning, how the judges were picked up. We took you through the GIHOC connection. We told you about the post-coup factors that all the narratives brought us. We spoke to you also about the PNDC connection, the investigations, how it went, the post-investigation issues that came up, and then we brought you a conclusion. My colleague Kojo Youngson joins me in the studio. Kojo?
Gifty.
We're doing night shifts, aren't we?
What an event. Indeed, it's worth doing a night shift for.
Certainly.
Isn't it?
Certainly.
Yeah.
And everybody is talking about it. Kojo, I'm wondering, what are your thoughts?
Well, first of all, I think only one word explains this phenomenon, who killed the judges. The one word is revealing. You see, some of the events that we have catalogued in this documentary, they span decades. So when you see them all put together in one night,